Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and we're going to be doing our Should You Buy video on the new Tumbril Ranger. And if you're not familiar with what this is, it's a new vehicle in the game, specifically a new bike, taking a different approach from what we've seen with the Nox and the Dragonfly, where those are hover bikes, and actually utilizing Tumbril's X-Tech wheels to basically be a standard motorcycle. Now, these things are interesting, and there are 3 different variants of them, and what they really are is kind of a smaller bike that has 2 wheels, like you would expect on a motorcycle, that comes with a few features, like having self-balancing technology, which if you're wondering, are you going to just roll over without the grav levers to keep you up, the answer is probably going to be no. You've got precision steering and braking, so it kind of seems like they're selling this as being a stable option to really drive. And again, I mentioned the X-Tech tires like that are on the Cyclone. Basically what these are they are tires that kind of expand and contract and open up little flanges that basically adjust the tread, the suspension, and the resistance to try and give you better control of the vehicle. Now, the size of this is one of the things that I think makes this interesting because it's 3.7 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 2 meters tall. You compare that to a Dragonfly, it's significantly less long. The Dragonfly is 6 meters long, so there's a difference there of 2.3 meters. And it's also half a meter less wide than the Dragonfly is. So you've got a significantly smaller footprint, which is pretty interesting considering there's some ships that then maybe get opened up for this to be able to be hauled around it. We don't have any specifics about what can carry this yet, and there is always going to be a Q&A post that comes out following the release of these types of articles that are going to give you more information. And I am sure one of the most updated or upvoted posts on the Q&A is going to be about what ships this can fit in, because that's always there. So we'll cover that when it does come out. Speed is not listed yet on the specs page. I'm assuming it's going to kind of follow what we've seen with the Tumbril line. I think this is going to be faster than a Dragonfly, probably slower than a Nox or the X1, but we'll just have to see. I mean, maybe what we see is it's kind of a hybrid, right? One of the variants is a racer model, so that one is probably going to be, significantly faster than a Dragonfly. Now, all of the specs on these vehicles are considered to be vehicle-sized components. Now, there's a few deviations there that we want to compare that to. So, for example, the cargo variant comes with 2 fuel tanks, which all the others come with 1. And unlike we see on the space bikes, there is no shield on these bikes. So you are going to be a little bit more exposed unless they make an adjustment to the stats page and specifically call that out. You can't really plan on being protected by a shield. Your bike and yourself are probably just going to be taking damage as bullets and lasers fly through. So I did mention there's 3 of these Rangers. There's the CV, which is known as the cargo variant. That one's going to cost $35. You have the TR, which I'm assuming is turret, comes with $40 at cost, so you're basically paying the combat fee there. And then you've got the racer version, which is back down to $35. The other alternative is you could get all 3 of them for $100, which ended up saving you $10 if you were going to buy all 3 of them anyways. It's also worth noting that there are war bond versions of all of these, so you could get all 3 for $85 if you're going to spend new cash. And the same thing goes for each of the individuals. You can save about $5 by paying new cash instead of store credits. Now, looking at these 3, you've got the cargo variant. It actually comes with some pretty impressive cargo capacity at 1.2 SCU. You've got smaller boxes on the sides and the back. You compare that to a Dragonfly. The Dragonfly comes with half an SCU, so it is significantly more than a Dragonfly, which is interesting. I think what we'll need to see a little bit is that really just a full 1 SCU that's actually on board the ship, and then your cargo vest ends up bringing you another 0.2, or is that just what happens to fit in there? The other thing that I mentioned is the CV comes with an extra fuel tank, so you are going to have significantly longer range on the CV. The Racer, the RC, is more aerodynamic. It comes with better brake cooling, so it probably has better stopping ability, as well as probably less heat generated throughout the overall craft. And then you've got upgraded propulsion, so you're obviously going to be a little bit faster when you're using the RC. It's basically just the sleek version with that nice red color scheme, and it's just a little bit more, aerodynamic. And the last one there's going to be the TR. That's the one that comes with the weapons. You get 2 size 1 weapons, so that basically matches the Dragonfly in firepower. And then you also get what they say is good speed and firepower, which make it to be a good patrol vehicle. I'm assuming these weapons are not gimbaled, so you are going to be in a scenario where you have to line up your shot with your bike. which depending on the terrain could be a challenge, but you do have firepower, which the other ones do not. My single biggest thing with this ship is why on earth would I get a wheeled wheeled motorcycle? Because the hover bike seems safer, it's more stable. And there was a quote in the brochure that basically said the last thing I need in a race is a grav lev to dig in and spin me out with no idea which way is up. Which kind of makes sense. If you've flown a Dragonfly or a Nox, you know that sometimes you can kind of get into some weird scenarios where you do lose control. Sometimes you also get airborne and have a hard time coming back down to the surface of a planet. But you've also been on most of these moons and looked around, and the surface is very rough on a lot of these moons. So unless you're on a place like has smoother surfaces like Cellin or Ida, or maybe some parts of a planet like Hurston, the terrain, I think, is going to be a little bit of a nuisance with these. So it almost seems to indicate like roads are going to be more important for this, whereas like a hover bike may be better for things like overall like exploring or going wherever you want to go. We are going to need to see the Q&A, but I am interested again in the clothing that comes with the bikes and see how functional like the cargo vest that comes with the cargo variant really is. Now, one thing that is kind of a thing here, as I've already mentioned, it doesn't have the grav lev, so you're on the ground. That could be a blessing in disguise. It could also be that it's kind of a pain for you because you're not necessarily being able to hover above the rough terrain. But it could also mean that you don't have all these additional components on your ship, so there's less things to break. You may have a lower signature, so you might be a little bit stealthier, which may make this kind of an advantage if you're wanting to use this for combat or kind of infiltration types of missions, or just you want to fly around or drive around and not actually be bothered. You may have a harder time being picked up when you're on one of these. I think the CV is a good alternative to an Ursa or a Cyclone because you carry significant SCU. However, there is one big difference where this does it like the Dragonfly, where you kind of split that cargo up amongst different areas. So while you carry 1.2 SCU on the CV, whereas the Ursa carries 2 SCU, the Cyclone carries 1, those both do like full SCU cargo containers. So, there may be restrictions in what you can actually pick up and how you can haul it around and use it. The buggies can still carry the singular larger boxes, which gives them an advantage in that particular area. Whereas I look at the CV and more of like the mission size boxes that you can carry around by hand. I do wonder a little bit if you have to be cognizant about balancing your bike too. Can you stick a half an SCU container on one side of your bike, and then does that impact the way your bike's actually going to drive? I don't know. We'll need to really see. So, looking at this, who should really buy one of these bikes? Frankly, I'm kind of of the mindset that I'm gonna wait and see for the Q&A on this because I really have a lot of doubts about the value of having a two-wheel vehicle as far as a stable option with the terrain that I've seen on a lot of these different planetary bodies. To me, it just seems like it would be a very challenging task to drive this and maintain a good orientation without having to make significant adjustments, which is going to lower your speed so much that where a hover bike, even if it is slower, may get you somewhere you want to be faster. So I think for me, I'm not going to say this is a pass. I think there's just a core gameplay mechanic that I need to see addressed a little bit more in the Q&A and as they continue to do shows on this to actually let me know what this is going to be like. I think it's an attractive vehicle. I think it's really interesting. I think the size being smaller is nice too because you probably have less of a ship requirement to haul it around. But the other thing is really just it's a $35 ship that comes with LTI, or $30 ship if you want to spend to get LTI. That's the cheapest LTI token we've seen in a long time because when they changed LTI to where you only get it with new money, it made it challenging to really get some of those. So now you're talking about a good option to be able to buy initially with some new money and then apply credits from elsewhere to get up to an LTI ship somewhere else. So without that restriction of having to go from vehicle to vehicle, you can now go vehicle to ship. If you're looking for LTI somewhere in your fleet, this may be a good approach to do that. But again, that's just kind of personal preference and how much value you put into LTI. It seems fun. I like the way that they actually implemented this as far as like the way they're kind of presenting these vehicles. But again, there's just a lot of unknowns that I think we need to sit tight on. So for me, it's a hold for now, but in maybe a week or so, we'll have better answers that'll kind of point us in the right direction. So if you guys have questions on this, please let me know. If you've got thoughts on whether you're going to buy it or not, please get it in the comments. Otherwise, stay tuned for more coming soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day and take care.